as I ease into my seat here, it's not easy being 40.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, so I'm 8 days into my 40th year. I told you this earlier, but last Friday, I went to sleep at 5:30 at night. I don't even know how that's possible.
I don't either. I got some ears on you, John.
Yeah, apparently people like to make fun of me electronically. And it's so easy too. I give them so much ammunition, I will say that.
Well, I can think of a reason why you're tired.
Okay, what's that reason?
John has been joining every aspect of Birdie Brennan Custom Closets.
Every aspect.
Every aspect.
And I've been getting initiated by putting together drawers, which must be done in the 10-degree cold weather outside for some reason. I'm not allowed to come inside and do them. I have to do them outside. So, yes.
I've done my share of drawers.
I believe it. I believe it. I think Uncle John would have let you come inside, though, to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I worked inside.
So, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's a new policy.
I don't know. Talk to Junior.
Yeah, I should talk to Junior. El Jefe. Anyway, so yeah, I have had the good fortune to join Birdie Brennan Custom Closets, and this is actually probably, I don't know, maybe 18 months in the making, kind of slowly building up to that. So I also have the opportunity to run the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. And when we launched that in 2019, Birdie was one of the first 23 businesses in Central Ohio to take part in that. And I had the opportunity to learn closets and everything she does kind of from that ground floor up. And the point of that program is to grow your business.
It's an amazing program for any small business locally. You should check it out. Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. They teach you, I mean, they just go through every aspect of business. And I went because first you have to get accepted. I was very happy to be accepted.
She knew somebody on the selection committee, though.
Is that why I got accepted?
No, but it couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt. I wanted to grow the closet part of the business. And we did a lot of forecasting and a lot of where do you see yourself in the future. And honestly, I have a lot of years on you. And when they talk about 5 years out, I knew that transitioning out of the business and getting to I think they had us draw a picture once of what do you see yourself in 5 years, and I drew myself on a beach. Everybody else in the class, I think, was drawing themselves in bigger factories or bigger stores, and I drew myself on the beach. So John, being a part of this, is helping me get to that 5-year mark.
Yes. Everything we do is with the intent of getting you on a beach.
I like it.
Sooner
Now.
than later. Yes, exactly
we're
right now.
We're back to the cold weather drinks.
That's right.
This is a Spanish coffee and tasty again. And it's warm.
Yeah, it is warm. We'll talk about the drinks here in a second, but yeah, there's a good chance if you call Birdie Brennan Custom Closets, you might get me talking to you on the phone. I might be responding to an email, or I might be putting drawers together at your yes, in the cold, at home, business, wherever it might be. So yeah, and it's been fun so far.
Good.
I went to sleep at 5:30, but it's been fun. Everything up till 5:30 was very fun. So, anyway, okay, Spanish coffee. That's the drink of the week.
That is the drink of the week.
And you have been really good with coming up with special drinks for us. So what's the genesis of this?
I love it. There's a little restaurant in New York City that makes a great Spanish coffee. That a lot of times when we're there visiting our daughter, that's our nightcap before we go in. So then we took a trip to Spain with 2 other couples. And the first night, we're like, Spanish coffees. they didn't know what we were talking about.
Mm.
So when I did the research for a recipe, because we don't really make them here, so I wanted to figure out a good recipe. They originated in Portland, Oregon, not Spain.
No. And of all places, why Portland?
I don't know, but that's what it said.
Okay.
But and lots of different recipes. But this is a good one.
It is delicious. And I thought I saw a recipe that had brandy in it, but this one has rum, we think.
Yes,
We know.
we know.
We know. It's
We
very
know.
delicious.
It's good.
So the recipe will be coming out tomorrow sometime. So check back on your Instagram or your Facebook feed, and you'll be able to enjoy these as well. So
Good when it's cold out.
It is. Yes, very good. So this brings us to episode 4 of Closets and Cocktails. And we've talked about a lot of different things. We were in the pantry / laundry room / storage area last time. And what we did was we actually wanted to hear from you all about where we should go next. Area of the house, problem. And one of the things that kept coming up was people have issues with paper.
It is the number one problem for everyone in home or office.
And it definitely goes both ways, right? Well, so like maybe a drop zone wouldn't have as much impact on an office, but paper definitely does.
Yes.
Definitely does. Okay. So when we were talking a little bit about how do we want to sit tonight? Where do we want to stage? And we actually just thought, like, I emptied out some briefcase stuff that I have here, and I have some notes, and I have my notebook here. And so you can start to see it can get out of control pretty quickly.
Really fast, because it's always coming in. It comes in from work, home, the mail. It doesn't stop.
Okay, let's talk. We didn't game plan this, but let's talk about mail real quick. Do you even bring mail into your house, or do you, if it's not appropriate, if it's junk mail or an advertisement, does it not even make it in the door?
It does here, because I live in a condo.
You seem frustrated about that.
And one of the first week I was here, I went to the management. I'm like, can we have a recycle bin at the mailboxes? Because it would be so smart. They said no. But, an attractive recycle bin would be perfect, because 80% should go. So I tell my clients to work with what naturally happens. If you usually come in through the front door, put a recycle bin and maybe a shred bin. Just, trash can that looks nice with what labeled. If you come into the garage, you're golden, because you can just stop at the...
I do.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't let it come in.
I have an 80-yard walk from the mailbox to my garage, and so I will do that, right? As if it needs to be taken in the house, it gets stuck under the arm, and then everything else gets ripped and goes in the other hand.
Yeah, don't let it come in if you can help it.
I would also, even the things that you do need, you talked about a shred pile, right? Like you get a medical bill in the mail, utility bill in the mail, something like that. 2/3 of that is unnecessary, right? It's a return envelope. It's other
just
paperwork.
individual pieces.
I mean, you're not set up to be very successful with the mail system.
No. And look at all the money that the companies spend sending you envelopes.
Yeah.
Because most people pay online, I think.
I think so.
And don't use those envelopes. So a lot of trees and a lot of money.
Well, and they give you discounts to pay paperlessly. So yeah, we should be taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple things. We talked about just how do we bring the paper into our house. We talked about systems to try and eliminate that, or at least the problems that we are facing with that. So other big problems when it comes to paper in the house.
Just too much, like we talked. Make your decisions quickly and get rid of it. And I would say make a retention plan so that you're not making a decision every time. So when a utility bill comes in, you've already made that conscious decision. Do I need it? And if you pay it, you see that they have accepted your payment from last time. If you make that decision, you don't need it, then you can throw away every bill after you've paid it.
You know, this actually, we've talked about systems before, but it's not leaving it up to emotion.
Right. You know. The 80-20 rule applies to paper. 80% of what you keep, you never look at again. And what happens is it keeps you from finding what you do need.
So what's a good example? I'm sure you've dealt with dozens of clients. What's a good example of this? Keeping you from finding something that you do need.
Oh, well, magazines. If people get magazines, they can just overrun the household. So having a retention plan. Newspapers are current information. So you read it that day, if you still get it in paper, and you let it go. There's no reason for newspapers to pile up because it's current.
Okay.
Magazines are kind of the same thing. They come out monthly. Choose how many magazines you keep of each kind. I have one client that gets probably 8 or 10 subscriptions. But in the very beginning, we talked about it, and he said 2 months of each one. So I figured out how much space, physical space, that those 10 subscriptions with 2 volumes each takes up. So every month when he gets new, I put in the new, I take out the old, I recycle. So there's no decision to be made.
Do people have a really big emotional attachment to paper? I mean, because
some people do, and then the other thing is they just don't know what to do about it. So when they don't know, they just set it down and they'll deal with it later, and that's the start of the next pile. I see people, I say gather up all the paper and you look at it one by one, all the current paper. That's what you want to deal with, and make a decision. And then I see that they just start looking at one and putting it down, and looking at it and putting it down, and then you're just churning it. So then you have to stop. So you can, maybe you have to walk away, maybe you get a glass of water, but you have to be able to make good decisions.
So with magazines, bills, things that we can have a system for. We just got through Christmas. What's your feeling on Christmas cards? How long should they exist in the house?
They're a greeting. You should enjoy it while it's there, and then let it go. It's really hard right now because I bet you 95% of the Christmas cards you get have pictures on them.
Yeah.
And then people think they need to keep the pictures. It's a choice. And if you choose to keep the photo Christmas cards, then you have to know about how much physical space they take up. Get a pretty box, decide how many years you keep, and then you create that physical spot for them. But that should not be anywhere, within arm's reach. That should be away.
Okay.
Away.
All right. So we have talked mainly about home purposes. I know we have a lot of business owners. We've talked small business earlier tonight. So let's take these same thoughts, but let's shift them over to the business owner. And maybe it's not even that big of a shift because people are still working at home, right? So they could have even more paper coming into the home workspace. So let's take the same principles but shift them to a different end goal. I did homework for our session tonight, and I'm reading a statistic off here, and this was based off of a small business. They used 1 ream of paper every week.
Okay.
So 500 sheets of paper.
Okay.
So I don't know, maybe that's a law firm, maybe that's, small manufacturing, something like that. Closet business.
We print plans.
I haven't printed that much paper. Oh.
I do.
So that's my next responsibility. I get to print more. Okay, so anyway, they identified between buying the paper, buying ink, which people always complain about how much
it's expensive.
How much ink costs, and if you try and cheapen it up by getting like the refillable ones, it never works properly. Between the distribution, taking the paper where it needs to go, between the processing of it, and here's the kicker, the salary. The people you're paying to do all of this work, right? They estimated for a ream of paper a week, it costs a business about $935, which is just under $47,000 a year to be
The paper.
yeah to willingly be on a paper system. And it's not even that much paper, right?
No.
I mean, you go to a big law firm anywhere down here, you go to Columbus State, you go to a bank, and it's 100 reams of paper. So I think we look at it in terms of, well, if I put this paper down, it's not really that big of a problem. But like everything, it starts to multiply, it starts to grow, and I don't know, that $47,000 a year scares me.
Well, it's a lot, but then when you keep all this paper, I'll go back to like when we were talking about at home. You keep all the paper that has no value, then you can't find the paper that you really need. And when you can't find the paper you really need, you're paying somebody to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they can't find it, you're paying them to recreate it. Now, that might not be as bad as it used to be because of computers.
Right.
And that really, digital age is changing a lot.
But people still like to have something in their
They
hand.
do, they do. And a thought and it's gone.
We'll take a drink and I'm sure it'll come right back. Well, but I mean, you know, so it's the intangible things that really cost us. So while we like having the paper in our hand because we like the feel of it, right? And I used to get the Sunday newspaper. I guess I wish I still did to a certain extent, but I liked having something in my hand to read once a week. I don't read the newspaper at all anymore since I don't have that physical subscription to it. But you think about it, that's just a purely emotional or unemotional response to it. When you start looking at productivity and you start looking at efficiency, whether it's in the business place or it's at home, I think it's probably even more scary at home. Well, maybe it's more scary at home because think about all the time you could be doing other things. If you have kids or you like to cook or you're trying to get one thing done and it should take 5 minutes but it takes 25 minutes.
Because you're looking for something.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating.
And a lot of times you're looking and you never ever do find it.
That's a good point too.
Yeah. You have to be really brutal. If you could find that piece of paper somewhere else, if you could Google it, let it go. What's the worst thing that could happen if you don't have that piece of paper? If it's not so bad, let it go.
Hold on, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. What's an example of a piece of paper that you absolutely had to have, and if you couldn't find it, your life would be?
There's not much. Because you can't, I think of an audit, I think of tax supporting documents.
Okay.
Certainly easier to have them than go to the bank and try to to gather them all up again. But there aren't many.
Yeah.
I go into homes and they have stacks and stacks of recipes and they want to organize them. And I'm like, okay, when you're going to cook dinner tonight, what are you going to do? They're going to go to the computer and Google a recipe. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And at that point, you can do it quick, because you might not want to throw away your grandma's chocolate chip cookie recipe, but go through it, be brutal, and let go of it.
Well, that almost goes back to your Christmas card suggestion, though, right? Like, have a nice box for it, store those things in, and then it's almost an experience, right? You get to get out your grandma's recipes, or you get to look at Christmas cards from 10 years ago, or whatever it might be.
But all the recipes that you've torn out of magazines and torn out of the newspaper,
yeah,
there should be no attachment, and you can certainly find it easier online.
Well, you know what we're going to focus on solutions for paper in 2 weeks on our next episode. But what I would also tell you is, I know that there's tons of apps that help you catalog recipes and things like that. And I'm actually going to give you an example. I have a smoker at home, right? I've won awards for my smoking
Rub it
overactive
in.
Yeah, I will. Until you beat me, I'm gonna rub it in. Anyway, so I was talking to a friend of mine, and I asked him a question about, I don't know, a specific type of meat or how he did it. Maybe it was a brisket, I'm not sure. But he pulled up his app to where he was able to take notes on his phone, and the heat and the indirect heat and how long it was on there and all the different steps. And it's accessible from the palm of your hand, right? You don't need a piece of paper to be able to tell you that.
No. I mean, there are great apps. Evernote, Dropbox, keeping all that paper. As long as you organize it that you can find it online. Mm-hmm. It really changes. Most people don't get bank statements anymore. You had to, it used to be you had to make that decision. How many bank statements do I keep? And now we don't usually get them.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, we haven't gotten our tax return. They put them in the cloud somewhere and give us the access to them. So less and less. And, being a geek and a little OCD, I bought a scanner. It's a great scanner. But now you have scan apps on your phone.
Yeah.
But you don't need it so much. We were at a closing, and the lady that handled the closing did all of the closing papers on scanning on her phone. It's crazy. But it's good. It's good.
Well, and I used the two words about 5 minutes ago: productivity and efficiency, right? And if you just think of a real estate closing, for Pete's sake, just the amount of paper that gets flipped over and passed around.
And people don't know what's important in it.
Yeah, that's true.
There can be 3 drafts of it, but they're afraid to throw any of it away.
Yeah.
And there's the proposal and the estimate, which is not the final papers, but it adds bulk to that package, and they're afraid to throw anything away.
Yeah. And
it's important.
And to this lady's point, if you can scan all that stuff, and obviously cybersecurity and making sure that it's safe is an important part of it, but you may be there for the same amount of time, but the entire process is much more streamlined.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so I have a couple statements here, and I had never heard this term before. Shadow files. Are you familiar with this term?
I am, because you told me.
Oh.
But
you
I
probably
will
have a
tell
different
you,
term for it.
I experienced it today in an office.
Okay, well, let's define shadow files
Okay.
first, and then you can give your example.
You found it.
Okay, so the concept of shadow files is basically you have one piece of paper here that I think is really important, but the people that I work with also have their own versions of it because they think that I'm going to lose it, or they think I'm not going to be able to find it, or they think they can do it better. So that is a shadow file. All right, now it's your turn.
Yeah, it is. I was in an office today, and I was brought in because they can't put their hands on things when they need them. And so I'm going through papers, and she's like, well, that's my copy. Before it leaves the office, I just take a copy. Because then if that copy doesn't come back, I still have it. So multiple copies. So a lot of what we came across, she's like, oh, that's not standard. But, it can go. But for her peace of mind, and I don't know this office well enough to know if it's smart for her to do that in the beginning. But then you get duplicates and you need to weed.
Yeah. So some of the reasons why people will do this, and I just I think this is interesting. They like to have it handy. Honestly, Aunt Birdie, I don't even know what that means. Have it handy.
I have a lot of clients that say I can't file it because if I file it, I won't know to do it. I won't see it. It has to be visual. The only problem with that if you keep everything and you keep it on your desk or you keep it so it's visual, then nothing is important.
Yeah, because it's all the same.
Because it's all the same.
Yeah.
You have to have the important things where you can find them, and you can't keep everything.
Yeah.
It's just like kids' papers.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, some people do. And you know, if you love this drawing, but it ends up all wrinkled and shoved in the back of the drawer, there's no value to it. There's no importance to it. So the things that you choose when you're deciding in the very beginning what's important, where you keep them, you want to keep them, you know, close to where you use them. If it's those magazines, you want to keep the quantity you're going to keep close to where you read them, whether that's, you know, by a comfy chair in the living room, by your nightstand in the bathroom. It's making those decisions.
So 2 stories. They both involve my kids. I was going through James's backpack. I get up in the mornings, I get all their stuff ready, I set their backpacks by the door so I can get them out of the house when time comes. And James brings his backpack home, and it is so heavy for a 3rd grader, right? Like, there shouldn't be this much stuff in there. So I take it out, and we open up this Trapper Keeper, and you pull out a stack of papers this thick. Now, it's just the teacher returning everything, right? And that's cool. And so I said, hey, buddy, why don't you come over here, we'll look at everything. I mean, there was a 2-minute story for every piece of paper, right? So there was an emotional connection there for him because he wanted to explain it, right? But I thought it was a good investment of my time to listen to the stories.
Absolutely.
Because then he got that off of his chest, and we could get rid of it after that. And there's spelling and math and, you know, things like that. Not things that we're going to keep, but it's still the process of him letting go of it.
Yes. Because some kids, you have to teach kids that they can't keep everything.
Yeah.
You know, some of them, there is a strong emotional attachment and they want to keep it all. And so as a parent, teaching them a physical limit so they can learn how to make choices of what they keep. And now there's the great apps for the artwork.
Yeah.
You know, you send a whole box full of artwork and you get a nice little book.
I think April has something called Legacy Box.
Okay.
That is one of those, which saves those types of things.
I just helped a client get 2 ready for her girls, and she used Archive.
Oh.
So I haven't seen the books yet.
It's a good play on words.
But yes, they packed up those boxes and sent them out.
Also, before I get to my second story, this is the first time I've been ahead of you in this series, so I must like this a little bit more than you do.
I love it. But it's quantity. There's more of it than the other 2 drinks.
That's true.
Okay.
All right.
Next story.
Second story. I'm on a meeting today, and we're talking about door hangers, right? Like, you know, you'd see a landscaping company or a snow shoveling company put on people.
We have those.
And the person was talking about it, and something triggered in my head. I said, okay, like, but everybody can have a door hanger. What's going to make a door hanger different? And what I remembered was the Disney Visa card had sent me something in the mail a couple weeks ago, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, that's a really good example. Let me go find that real quick. And I have my headsets on, so I can't walk too far away from the computer. And I reached down, like, okay, it would be in this drawer because this is where my business stuff is. And so I pull it open, and it's not in there. And I stand up and I think to myself for a second, I'm like, oh, I'm hiding it from the kids. So then I went and pulled over the other drawer, and it was in there. So there was a method to why it wasn't where it was supposed to be.
And thankfully you remember that.
I don't hang on to so much stuff that I can kind of keep track of everything.
I do, talking about kids' papers, I do help moms go through. And a lot of times they're like hiding artwork in a cereal box so that it can go in the trash without kids pulling it back out.
I love it.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
That's what moms do. And you're doing it to service to your kids. You got to teach them. I tell my clients to keep a 2-pocket folder for every grade and every extracurricular activity. And I think it's very cool for the kids to like write their names on the outside, because then you see the progression of the handwriting. And then when they're graduating, you know, all the other moms are like, oh, I gotta get all the stuff together. You just like spread out these 2-pocket folders.
Man, that's such a, I assume you don't have that issue with dads getting them to categorize stuff?
For the kids?
Whittle down? Yeah, for the kids. No. I like to throw my kids' stuff away in front of the kids.
Well, as long as you're teaching them how to make good decisions.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so we're about 30 minutes into our 4th episode here, which is generally right around our stopping point. I wanted to do a couple things tonight, and it's really set the stage. We've identified a lot of the problems. We want to come.
I've got solutions.
Yeah, we want to come back in 2 weeks and discuss the solutions of what to do with all of this stuff. And maybe it's apps, maybe it is physical things we can use, maybe it's structuring your house where you do have a recycle bin right as you walk in the door. But we wanted to come back and we've already laid a good foundation, but we'll do the solutions coming up next.
Sounds good.
Anything else you wanted to talk about tonight? We've talked about business and paper and
Kids.
drinks and kids.
I wanted the snow. You know?
This snow?
No, Monday, when they said 7 to 10 inches.
Oh,
I
you
wanted
wanted
that snow. I was disappointed. Now I don't believe them.
Well, you don't have to shovel.
That's true.
And I got stuck in my driveway
That's
trying to get out, and that's not good.
not good.
I think that was on Tuesday.
It was Tuesday. It was Tuesday.
All right.
So, oh well.
So,
Cheers.
yeah, so bundle up, make yourself a Spanish coffee, and enjoy
Stay warm.
the 7 to 10 inches of snow that may or may not be coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And now my 40-year-old tail's going to try and get out of here.